Jason Miles, and welcome to another episode of This is Revolution Podcast. Thank you all for coming. Just a quick reminder, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, and don't forget to click that notification bell so you're notified whenever we go live. We're constantly doing cross streams with other channels and adding new shows. Next week, we'll be doing our bi-monthly news show with Matt and David of Left Reckoning. Also, just last night, we did another episode of our TIR Presents Gaming Materialists with our very own Jean Bajlan and Derek Varn. If you enjoy what you're seeing and would like to further support the channel and assist in the growth, become a patron. For our patrons, we have the exclusive Champagne Room, where we have more zany, uncensored fun. Not only do you get Champagne Room access to the call-in half of the show, you'll also get to join us for movie nights. And we are doing our first ever This is Revolution Beyond the Red Zone Fantasy Football Draft, August 29th. So if you want to be part of the fun, patreon.com/Bitterlake Presents. All that out of the way. Let's bring in our Thursday night news crew. And we have a full news crew house, jam-packed with some very interesting stories. First and foremost, let me bring in my homie, my dog. He is the man of the Mau Mau Hour. That also is a feature that you get with your patronage. You get to be a part of the call-in segment of the Mau Mau Hour. Let's bring in the one, the only, the Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles.
I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever.
I was going to call you earlier today, but something told me that you would be busy.
Yes and no.
I know you have a guest. I also know your birthday's coming.
There's nonstop guests. After this one leaves, our good friend Ben Burgess is coming down.
Wow, you're going to Ben Burgess in your domicile.
Yeah, we're going to do a episode of Give Them an Argument, the one that we do with Teray, where we go over movies, and we'll be talking about Blade, the 1997 movie that introduces us all to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the return of superhero movies, if you will. We'll be talking about Blade.
You know, it's so funny. In the green room, we were talking about that, and I'm not going to take too much time, but I wanted to ask you a question. Is it true that the movie Blade saved Marvel Comics?
Yes. Yes.
Really?
Cinematic, yeah. Yeah, that all their properties had not done well in movie form, even going back to Howard the Duck. So, Blade did wonderfully for them.
Wow. What do you think about Wesley Snipes and the overall credit he gets for saving Marvel as a result of his role in Blade?
Honestly, I don't think he gets enough credit. You can't have Blade without The Crow. We have to be honest that The Crow coming out a few years before kind of sets the tone for how we see these darker superhero movies. Even the 89 Batman with Michael Keaton, as successful as that was, it still has a very kiddish appeal to it because it's still, at the end of the day, trying to sell toys. Blade, this is just my opinion, and movies like The Crow are the complete opposite of that. They're very dark. Blade is almost like an action horror movie, if you will. And it's a character that not a lot of people know because he didn't really have, I don't think he had a standalone comic. He is a character in a short-lived horror comic that Marvel did in the 70s, Dracula. And I think originally, what's his name? Quentin Tarantino might have had the rights originally. Thank goodness he didn't make any of these movies because Blade in the comic is a lot more blaxploitation-esque than what Wesley Snipes did with that role.
Right.
To the point where
you know they're remaking it, right?
They are, with the Bay Area native Mahershala Ali.
That's right, Mahershala. You know, he's one of my favorite actors. I like, in terms of the younger generation, I like Mahershala Ali a lot. Also, fellow Muslim cat.
He also was a rapper with hieroglyphics for a minute.
You were a rapper with hieroglyphics.
that he's a renaissance man of the new millennium. I think if anyone's going to do that role, I'm excited to see what he does. I'm excited to see what they do with the character. Teray and I are pretty big fans of the first two movies, and they even made a Japanese anime that's a little truer to the source material. Again, much even darker than the movie was. Really, really good. I think you can probably find it for free. The Japanese Blade anime series. So fingers crossed that would be pretty good. I am getting a little tired of superhero movies in general, but we can talk about all that later, and we probably will, because everyone else on the show, except for Pascal, watches all these superhero movies. So let's bring in the co-producer of this show, behind the scenes. This man, I have to admit, and I will say this on air, I am so happy that he is back from his quest back home to sow his royal oats and enjoy his home turf of the UK. I'm glad he's back in the bowels of America. I'm selfish that way. Please welcome everyone's favorite history professor at Missouri State University, Mean Gene Bajlan.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? How are you doing, Chet? How are you doing, Jason? How are you doing, Pascal? I have one blade point to make, actually. Very quick blade point we need to make. The aesthetic of the Blade movie was actually taken from the Vampire the Masquerade roleplay game. And for in the first movie, they didn't credit the artist from the Vampire the Masquerade roleplay game. They only started paying him in the second movie, because they kind of blabbered to him by accident that we looked at all your artwork from the Vampire the Masquerade roleplay game, and we really liked it, and we used it for Blade. And he's like, should you pay me for that? And they got him paid in the second movie. So like there was a big overlap with the kind of emergence of Vampire the Masquerade as the premier emo roleplay game, and providing that urban kind of aesthetic to the aesthetic that of Blade is very much influenced by that biker / gothic / street punk, which came out of the Vampire the Masquerade scene. And also the Mahershala Ali, does he not play Pascal's favorite television Haitian, Remy Danton?
That's true. Remy Danton is a Haitian character. I like Mahershala Ali. I've always said that he'd be the perfect person to play Jean-Jacques Dessalines if we ever had a movie on the Haitian Revolution.
What's that one black guy that makes all the movies that are mildly Marxist? He made the movie about Marx. He made the.
Oh, you're talking about.
Oh God, I can't think of his name.
He also made the one about Patrice Lumumba.
Yes.
He did the one about James Baldwin as well.
What is his? Who was going to know his name? Let's bring in everyone's favorite middle manager of the Death Star. I was actually just watching some Star Wars nostalgia that made me even more excited for today. Please welcome Deep State Cuba.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be back. If peace and greetings is already taken, then conflict and mild insults.
Raoul Peck. Raoul Peck is his name.
Raoul Peck. Thank you, Strong. Thank you, Raoul Peck. That's the brother's name. Raoul Peck will make a Desolate movie. Maybe.
We should try to get Raoul Peck as a guest. That would be a good get. I might be able to.
You didn't like Exterminate All the Brutes.
That was good. Come on, listen. Tell me that was not wokeness on fleek.
I took your review and I was like, I didn't see it.
Exterminate on the Brutes was kind of woke, bro.
Well, let's get our final Haitian opinion on that. She is the moderator for every large show every large left show.
I Googled exterminate all the brutes, and on the cast, Josh Hartnett is credited as white man.
He and I have the same birthday.
You and
White man and black woman. There you go.
Well,
Yeah.
please welcome M. Tucson.
Yay! Wow. Brief applause, very low. Okay. I see
It
how
was a very low applause, was it not,
Yeah.
M. Tucson?
it was. Some people.
Relax, it's not remotely.
don't win.
It's not commiserate. It's not commensurate to your value to the show by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, look at you playing Catherine to his show. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Now, we
No
have a
mention
lot
of-
news stories. We have a lot of news stories today. And MT, let's start the conversation with you because you sent your article to me 4 times. All 4 times I couldn't open it. But the concept of what you want to talk about is intriguing to me. What is the role of venture capitalists in the current rise of labor unions or labor struggles in general?
See, this is what I'm trying to figure too. So, we're all aware of Starbucks and Amazon unions, but many other workplaces are attempting to organize too. Among them was PEN, PEN America, a literary and human rights nonprofit. To get their union organization efforts going, they brought in a venture capitalist startup called Unit of Work. So we all know, just so we all know, a venture capitalist is a private equity investor that provides capital to companies with high growth potential in exchange for an equity stake. Where could the equity stake in a union be? And how does Unit of Work work? So the founder of the startup is a man who organized a solidarity campaign for janitors at MIT while he was a grad student. He's the one who turned to the VCs for backing. The VCs hold about 1/5 of the company shares and do not hold board seats, if that makes it better for you.
Wait, do they own 1/5 of the union or 1/5 of the nonprofit?
1/5 of the nonprofit that helps the union. Yeah, it's a lot of parts. A lot of parts. Unit of Work get their money by imposing, organizing, consulting, and tech fee on the fledgling unions that they help. Union members have to pay this fee on top of union dues for Unit to profit. The LA Times sort of frames this as a good deal. As their director of organizing said, it's really about getting more unions. I've never seen this much labor organizing and demand for resources. We want to make the tools more broadly accessible because no one's taught how to form a union. So it seems people who want to organize within capitalism were more readily angled towards getting help from a venture capitalist-backed for-profit startup than a more leftist-oriented folks who would have an idea who Jane McAlevey is.
This is kind of disgusting.
I mean, it makes perfect sense because right now, in this new wave of unionization, nobody's really stepping up into the Gambino role. Unions can't corrupt themselves, right? And it turns out that the 5 families demonstrated how you could turn it into a piggy bank, right? You can launder money through a union. You can, by adding this like secondary due, you can turn it into a rent as well, which is what private equity loves to do, right? Like they're already shaking down the companies. Why not shake down the workers as well? Cut out the middleman. especially you're going to get into ironic situations where the union is owned by one private equity vampire, the company is owned by another private equity vampire, and you'll have labor disputes which are just kayfabe behind the real conflict, which is between two groups of billionaire assholes that are fighting over, a 5% cut in the surplus being produced by the operation.
They call that a
Jeez.
vampire's triangle, by the way.
Vampire's triangle.
Yeah.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
Vampires and meat.
It reminds me, if do you remember Corey Pine's book about Silicon
Live,
work, die? And do you remember his fake idea for a company? It was called Laborize. So he had this idea for a tech startup company, which was kind of a joke, which was laborize, unionize the opposition, where companies would hire this app to get their opponent's workforce unionized. And I think, of course, it's like highly illegal, but it was something that would totally fly in Silicon Valley. But it tells us two things. Like, by themselves, like Kuba says, labor unions, they're important for worker struggles, but by themselves they can be diverted into a number of different directions in terms of whether they're towards a political end, towards socialism, towards reform or revolution, whatever. But they can also be turned into, as we know in American history, vehicles for organized crime or other interests which are not necessarily what we might think of as progressive. I mean, I don't know what Pascal thinks about this, about the role of unions, for example, in historically with regard to race relations. That's a complicated history as well.
I mean, unions have had a long history of positive role in terms of black labor in America, but also a negative role in being exclusive for quite a long period of time. But eventually, particularly in the mid 20th century, with the rise of people like A. Philip Randolph, who was able to unionize the sleeping car workers, there were many efforts. The CIO was very, very, very advanced in supporting black unionization. There were many advanced attempts to get black people into unionized positions. And let's make it clear, we had our great friend Paul Prescott on talking about black people in unions about 3 weeks ago, and it is a fundamental fact that of every other constituency in the United States, black people are disproportionately unionized. It is a linchpin to stable middle class black labor to have quality union jobs. I agree with you that there are many inconsistencies with union labor, but let's not act like overall the good does not outweigh the bad.
Oh, I'd certainly agree with that, and I can't wait to see the pushing and shoving that happens over who gets to be local 15 for Penn. But he gets it.
Well, this is the problem. This configuration that M. Tucson is bringing about, where you have venture capitalists, which are always basically just capitalists with their dicks out, waiting to just rape whatever they can, metaphorically speaking.
Okay.
Ready to suck up the capacity to infuse themselves into the role of unionization and act as if they are the good faith actor in this endeavor. This is dangerous.
Well, before we move on, let me ask this question to the panel. What does everyone feel about the NLRB as far as being almost an anti-union force, even in its design early on in the New Deal?
I don't think that unionism, that organized labor in the United States, has ever had a stable role within the political economy. It's always been subject to pressures subject to occasional persecution, and capital has never reconciled itself to the very existence of unions. And I think that it's useful to contrast that with unionization in continental Europe, unionization in Japan, unionization even in Canada, where you have a labor relations bureaucracy and legal political structure inside the state that enshrines certain limits to the conflict between capital and labor. And if you want full-blown revolution and transition to socialism, then you might treat that as an impediment. You might treat that as an obstacle that's preventing the contradictions from really heightening to the point where there's only one way out. But in terms of a day-to-day society, these other models, which much more intimately link the role of organized labor with governance at the federal level, at the national level, those are the ways that you create a stable system for organized labor.
And you have some more, Toussaint? You said that's not it. But wait, it gets worse. Is that what you're saying?
But wait, it gets worse.
Toussaint? Oh, she took off.
She went on a coffee break.
Be surprised how many people love the craft.
And now we know where she's really at.
Damn. That's like,
Wow.
that's a major accusation that was just dropped there. Major accusation.
The Toussaint is just sitting there like Chris Rock in New Jack City.
Well, crack is very Moorish, so.
Well, moving on, Pascal, you and Jean both are discussing the Republican Party. Jean, I know you wanted to discuss the Republican primary, where every liberal's favorite Republican, Liz Cheney, conceded. And Pascal, you wanted to discuss Ron DeSantis and his fascistic attacks on public education. What is Ron DeSantis doing in your state?
Well, for those of you who may not know, I live in the interesting state of Florida.
My
And
condolences.
the weather's nice, the people not so much.
Mm.
Our governor is Ron DeSantis, who won his election bid, I believe, in 2018. And for all intents and purposes, seems like he is going to be a major contester for the presidency of the United States in 2024. Ron DeSantis basically has used the playbook that anything that pisses off the libs is whatever I'm going to do and campaign on. His claim to fame is that he was literally the most anti-COVID precautious governor in the United States during the height of COVID. And quite frankly, it worked out pretty well for him. Many companies started to immigrate into the state. Small businesses started to come to the state. The economy in the state of Florida did very, very well. DeSantis actually demonstrated the capacity of being anti-COVID lockdown and anti-COVID protection and still actually surviving economically and doing very, very well. Well, one of the things that DeSantis was able to do as well was to use the online, I don't want to call it a grift, the online resentment of woke culture, if you will, and the antagonism towards the rise of critical race theory to come out with a flurry of educational, some would say fascistic bills like the Stop Woke Act, like as well as the Victims of Communism Act. All of these kind of bills to try to shore up his bona fides as being a hardcore right winger. He's also enshrined into law the capacity set so that you cannot discuss sexual orientation or sexual agenda of any type at elementary school levels or even most levels of public education unless it's approved by a board of education. He's also created a board in which the subject matter of the schools have to be brought up for discussion as well. He is now gone as far as allowed non-college graduate U.S. veterans to take
And spouses.
and
And
yes, true, and
spouses.
spouses to take public school teaching jobs in the state of Florida, regardless of their education, because their education a teacher shortage in the state of Florida. There's a rampant need for teachers, and his solution has basically been to take veterans regardless of the educational attainment, and give them certification to become teachers. So Ron DeSantis is dangerous. He is a rabid ideologue, and something tells me that there's a possibility that he may be more likely to be the Republican nominee in 2024 than Trump because he's so effective. I just
So,
wanted to expose people to his right wing posturing to get a sense of what people think about his chances in 2024.
Can I just jump in and say, like, the whole thing about having, military veterans as high school teachers? That's totally from Starship Troopers, if you remember. They just bring in all the military people to teach, which is,
yeah, no, that's. I mean, Paul Verhoeven deserves credit for the whole thing, but the concept of having the military go into schools and use it as a venue for patriotic indoctrination. That's one reason why teachers' unions have historically skewed left, because militaristic states like the idea you have education, you can reach the young, you can. It's a very effective means of reproducing your jingoistic nationalism across generations. And I don't think that DeSantis is, trying to reproduce the conditions of Imperial Japan. I think he's just pissing off the libs, and he also knows that this is two birds with one stone. Veterans and military families skew significantly more conservative than the general population. There are outliers, but in general, they skew more conservative. Nothing makes, the Grinch-like Republican hearts swell 2 sizes larger than as soon as you say, our veterans. And they're the quintessential worthy poor. So you can trash a public sector union and shore up the support of a constituency by doing something that your Republican base will applaud. It's a brilliant move. And
I'm sorry, Kuba. Please continue.
yeah, on a purely tactical political level, it's I can't imagine it's nothing but good things for him. And the secondary consideration of, will the kids actually learn anything in these schools? The people who vote on that issue, you've either lost already or are weakly tied to Florida and are just going to move to someplace which feels less dystopian.
Well, what do we think? What are our thoughts about DeSantis? Is DeSantis a true believer, or is this all for cred with the peeps, if we will?
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I mean, what's in his heart is really hard to believe because I know plenty of conservatives who when you talk to them on one level, it's perfectly rational, but then when they get in another mode of thinking, they are true believers of some of the weirdest things that you can imagine. But what I wanted to ask you, Pascal, is I think there were a lot of Republicans, especially the more strategically minded Republicans, the Republican establishment, and those kind of people who would love to see DeSantis run for the presidency. I think in many ways he's Trump without the baggage. The problem I think that exists with Trump is that he is so triggering to the libs that he turns them out to a certain degree. I think there's a lot of people calculating that DeSantis can rile up the base to the same degree, but won't trigger the libs so that they all turn out to vote and they'll be depressed because the Biden administration is a failure. But what's the scuttlebutt in Florida about whether DeSantis can run? Because, this is him being able to successfully run is going to be dependent on Donald Trump not running and Donald Trump endorsing him. I don't think if DeSantis goes up against Donald Trump and Donald Trump has a serious primary challenge, he can win. And so, DeSantis is entirely dependent. His candidacy for moving beyond Florida is dependent on Trump.
Or
Actually-
Trump being taken out because of some kind of legal constraint that comes out in this investigation.
I think that Gene may have stumbled on an effective means of neutralizing DeSantis. You pronounce his name DeSantos, so people can't get past the fact that he's Latino, which he isn't. He's not. He's Italian, but that's the thing. It's DeSantos, but
But
no one's telling you that you have to say DeSantis.
They don't. But that's the thing. I think the Republicans, they've moved beyond this race stuff. The racists are a declining element of their coalition. Like the whole new Republican Party is all about social conservatism and strict citizenship.
I think
the Christian nationalists are not overt racists in terms of burning crosses and pointy white hats, but there's a certain fascistic element to their rhetoric that definitely has holdover cray race sensibilities.
Well, I think the difference between racism classic and new racism is old racism said the problem with non-ideal white people, which includes the lesser whites, insufficiently assimilated white ethnics, but of course everyone who is of a different, pigmentation, different racial background, is that they can never be white people. And therefore they can never be part of our team. They can never be good enough to be with us. Racism 2.0 is like, we're fine with black people. We're fine with Latinos. We're fine with immigrants, as long as essentially they are the same to us, right? The same as us. As long as you're a identical Christian, capitalist, as long as you hate the libs like we do, who cares if you eat soul food, right? Who cares if occasionally you even speak Spanish? But and I think that there is a shift in that direction and an attempt to de facto segment off the Richard Spencer Pepe Edgelord set from the new NatCon constellation. And DeSantis doesn't hit race. He hits critical race theory. And the people he fights with most are white libs, which are in this imagination kind of the real enemy, right? The boss behind all the other things you don't like.
But what I want to ask is, do you not also think at the same time, because at least within a constituency of the Democratic Party, there is so much of an emphasis on race and a racial coalition, things like that, that the Republicans can now far more plausibly to normies who are not engaged in politics portray the Democrats as the ones who are race baiting?
Well, that's what's kind of happened. That's especially. I'm sorry.
No. Jason, you're right. The Republicans have been using that tactic for a long time. So it's the liberals that are obsessed with race.
And it's happening, in kind of the more non deep political baseball talk, even on the internet. I fell down a bit of a dark rabbit hole of black. I won't even call it conservative. Just I guess it was conservative. Black conservative shows. These shows have massive followings, and ultimately, all they really say is that kind of the same old tune we've been hearing since the '90s. Black people need to pick themselves up. It's not the white man's problem. It's your problem. There really is no racism. Who did I watch, Pascal? Did I send it to you? I didn't. I sent it to Teray because I was going to save it for you and play it Saturday. But I sent it to Teray, and he actually called me
so much because you wanted to trigger me. That's why.
I did. I sent it to Teray. I said, I'm going to play this for Pascal on Saturday. And Teray said, you just ruined my entire day with this 5-minute thing. It was pretty horrible. But I know we have some super chats that MT wants to read.
Okay. Hi. I am back. I had some tech issues that took me out. Deep state. Deep state. But I'm back. All right, so let's see these super chats. Are these pinned? No.
Oh,
All right.
Sorry. I am so
Okay,
sorry.
you pinned random stuff. I'm like, what is this?
I've got the first one. I've got the
I'll go
first
for the
one.
first one. Okay, Kuba's going to read it.
Okay. Oh, Pascal, it gets so much worse. Part of the 7th grade curriculum is now that students have to acknowledge the Protestant faith's contribution to American work ethic. Capital W, capital U, T, capital H, question mark, exclamation point.
Well done.
I'm going to do a different voice for each one as a means of getting MT back on this.
All right, MT, I have stopped sleeping on the job, and I have pinned them all now.
Did you really? Okay.
I did. I apologize.
The super chat has a great point that this is part of like a package of reinforcing a conservative cultural mythos around the United States, and that's something that conservatives find quite threatening. The idea of reinterpreting the great national narrative in ways that they don't like. Now, all of this, from my perspective, is a distraction from healthcare, from labor relations, from wages, from concentration of wealth. But it does engage all of the energy and attention of
Can I just quickly jump
course.
on this as well? Because I think there's actually a really interesting theoretical point here. So there's a sociologist, John Hutchinson, who talks about nations as a zone of conflict. So the conflicts around nationalism, when we think about it, are usually between two nations. But within any national community, we often see conflicts over like what it is to be part of the nation, who are the true representatives of the nation. And oftentimes those conflicts, those different visions of what it is to be British, what it is to be American, what it is to be Turkish, what it is to be Chinese, those represent different political coalitions. And what I think is interesting is that the conservative notion of Americanness is being reformulated in a way that even if there is some racist underpinnings to it, there is enough kind of ideological flexibility to peel away members of the Black and Latino community so that they can feel part of that political coalition with an emphasis on this kind of social conservatism. So, unlike a kind of more racialized political coalition and a racialized notion of Americanism in the past, this new conservatism is increasingly, I think, moving at least in a way that it can be more flexible, that people can, people from minority communities can plausibly feel part of that community.
Well, within the black political space, there's already a template of that politics that works very well with American conservatism. It's a Booker T. Washington. It's Bookerism. It's
Yep.
Booker T. Washington. It's the perfect model of accepting Americanism, eschewing unions, eschewing labor, eschewing that M word, the Marxism, the communism, the socialism, getting rid of all of those gripes. Just stand by your country, work hard, and there's a liberal version of Bookerism and there's a conservative version of it, and it works well to create this type of narrative of part. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I don't care. I think the ADOS fascination works profoundly well with American conservatism. You getting black people to overtly sign on to empire and say we're proud to be American.
It's going to be a hop, skip, and a jump from there for your reparations to take the form of seized Mexican land.
Hey, you leave us out of here.
We coming for you, nigga.
But isn't this just isn't just? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, MT.
Oh,
Go ahead.
thank you. I just wanted to say you can see the downplaying of race on the right even with the Proud Boys. I'm the head of the Proud Boys, also not a white dude. Nick Fuentes, all these people, Nikki Haley are accepted.
Listen.
Yeah,
Let's make it
effective.
clear. What Gene is absolutely correct here. There is going to be a multiracial element to the next iteration of a right-wing administration.
hmm
Yes.
And more than the HUD secretary too.
Yeah, no, it's going to be. Listen, obviously, no one is saying that 30% of black people are going to vote Republican. What I'm saying is that 10, 15, 12%.
And that's all you need.
Yeah.
When the electoral math is so close. I remember in Quebec, they would talk about sovereignty referenda, and it was basically like, okay, 100% of the Anglos are going to vote to stay in Canada. Of the immigrants, 95%. So we need like 12%, 15% of the francophones, and then we're okay. And similarly, if you can peel off 10, 15% black people, and maybe twice that Latinos, maybe 20% Latinos into a Republican bloc, that's enough.
But
And it's
Pascal, this thing that I found, this video that I was gonna play. I'm not gonna play Saturday. I think I found another thing to piss you off. But there's a rapper named Kevin Gates. Are you familiar with him?
Oh, I am.
Died.
No, he's alive. Toussaint, you're familiar with Kevin Gates. I guess
I
Kevin
am.
Gates is a reformed gangster rapper or something. And in his new reform, he does not like Black Lives Matter because he feels that black people don't care that Black Lives Matter. And whenever he sees an officer now, he feels more in line with white people and law enforcement than he does with the average black person, because he feels that it's black people that try to vilify him on the internet. Yes, a lever action radical, Kevin, did come out publicly years ago and say he eats booty. It's true. Doodle chaser. But so the guy doing this video was like, see, Kevin Samuels, Kevin Gates said it, and he is a gangster rapper. He's got teardrop tattoos.
Oh dear.
As if that gave him some sort of validity. Like the only way to get a teardrop tattoo is by having your Vato homie do it for you in Pelican Bay, and that's not.
Isn't that related to eating booty?
How many booties you eat?
I mean, it's a low carbs diet, right?
I will never look at those tattoos the same again. Thank you, Gene.
That's how he put it in work.
So for each ass he had a tear. Is that why it looked like he was just crying a damn river? But this black guy kept going, see, people disown me and my black family doesn't want to talk to me when I say these same things, but my white friends love me. Well, of course they do. Stupid.
Oh my gosh.
You what you
Kevin
said?
Gates is a little bit like Dave Chappelle now to me, in that it's not about what you do, it's about this social commentary that you're always giving. That clips of this can spread far and wide.
Well,
Yeah.
like once you get fame and success, your relationship to capital changes greatly.
Absolutely.
You probably don't want to rob a bank when you can walk into one and they'll give you an extended line of credit for your business proposal.
There you go. All you gotta do is be nice. Just be nice to these
And
white
now
folks.
all your friends in the hood want to fucking rob you because they know you got a couple bucks. So of course you're going to be a lot nicer to law enforcement. Fuck out of here, man. Quit acting like this is the way. Like a bulb just went off in my head as soon as I got $1 million.
Jamie Foxx does that too. He talks about partying with Trumpers. He was they were on yachts, I believe. And he went swimming with a bunch of Trumpers, and they played country music. They were like, Jamie Foxx, you're all right. And Jamie's like, see, this is the way, people. This is how you got to
No
do it.
racism. Once
Yeah,
you have $1 million,
step one, give everyone a yacht.
Yeah.
The only color that matters is green.
Speaking of green yachts, Gene Bajlan, you want to talk about the Republican primary?
Yeah, I found the Republican primaries quite interesting. I believe something like 95% of the Trump candidates won, and they displaced those Republicans who had voted for the impeachment of Donald Trump. And of course, the most famous of these individuals is hero of humanity, apparently, Liz Cheney, which you know, I as everybody knows who listens to the show, I do a service for TIR, which is listening to MSNBC in the morning,
morning snow,
morning service,
listening to
Dawn Watch with Gene Bajlan.
Dawn Watch with Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski.
God.
Wow.
Your compatriot, Kuba.
I've never pretended that that we were all good ones.
We're one of the good ones. But you know, obviously, MSNBC is going full fruit for Liz Cheney. You know, as an institutionalist, I was just scrolling Twitter. CNN has called her the Obi-Wan Kenobi, but of the Republican Party.
What the fuck does that mean?
Yeah,
I don't know. She's gonna
She's gonna live in a cave for a bunch of years and change her name to from Lynn to
and then get murdered on the Death Star. You know?
Yeah.
And they get murdered on the Death Star. But
wears robes.
She wears robes. But I think it's kind of interesting because, you know, as much of the liberal establishment has, you know, put their eggs in the good Republicans, the institutionalists will win out, and this has really just been proven, you know, totally wrong. As you know, there's a Democratic reaction against the small d Democratic reaction against the hearings about January the 6th, and the Republican base is backing their guy, and they're not going to back people who are going to stab Donald Trump in the back.
Scalawags, carpetbaggers.
I'm sure even pro-Trump people in the establishment who like Trump's agenda think that they could implement that agenda with someone like Ron DeSantis more effectively, because Trump is just so lazy and unreliable, right? They need a slightly less lazy and unreliable leader.
It's funny that it would be the Latino version, Ronaldo dos Santos.
Ronaldo DeSantis. So this has been I think an interesting moment because now we're seeing liberals talk about stuff like Liz Cheney should run for president.
Yes,
It
I saw
shows you
that.
the entire like all their politics is aesthetics. There's no, Liz Cheney is one of the most conservative members of the Republican Party according to a voting report, and she is an avowed imperialist.
Her
And these
father is Dick Cheney.
her father is Dick Cheney, who
He told
shot a
Congress
man.
to F off.
Yeah,
He shot his friend.
shot his friend, exactly. And this shows you how absolutely bonkers liberals are in their in their politics, because they're rallying behind, they're turning Liz Cheney into a hero. And this is partly because I think, at least at this present moment in time, this will obviously change when the Republicans get back into power. But at this moment in time, the war party in Washington is the Democratic Party, who they're doing the Ukraine stuff, they're doing the woke imperialism, where it's like we need more trans drone operators, that kind of stuff. Where you have the CIA advert where they have the woman, the Latino woman with
Generalized anxiety.
anxiety. You could just imagine, like, I can't deal with this now. I can't deal with this now. No, they're gonna cut off. They're going to cut off Jack Ryan's hands. It's like, no, I'm too nervous to deal with it. But
yeah, no, she has an emotional support hamster, like in a glass ball on her desk, right? And whenever somebody needs to be tortured in her office, she just like looks at oh, hello, Mr. Pebbles. You're doing fine, aren't you? Meanwhile, somebody's screaming because their fingernails are being torn out.
This is why Cuba has to use the euphemism Ewoks, when we all know.
Exactly, we got a memo about it and everything.
This just shows you that the whole fantasy that the Republican Party were going to like break their addiction to Trump after January the 6th, after he loses the election, was just nonsense. And and it comes down to the fact that people don't like the Democrat. People don't like Democrats. They don't trust Democrats. And Trump is, at least in a negative sense, being seen as someone who's standing up to a liberal establishment, which is hegemonic and which has now incorporated a whole big section of the Republican Party apparatus. The entire the election advisor people, these campaign people, consultants, they've all moved over to the Democratic Party. A whole big
Lincoln Project.
All these people are moving, all this kind of like bureaucratic apparatus, all the leading elements of the permanent state, administrative state, whether that's the FBI, whether that's the brass in the military, they're all aligning with the Democratic Party at the moment, because of course the Democratic Party is seen as a more reliable steward of imperialism. Trump was not an anti-imperialist, as people say, because he appointed John Bolton, for God's sake, but he was unreliable, right? Like their argument is, it's like the Obama thing. The Obama directed the anti-war movement into a discussion about imperial strategy and not about imperialism. The Obama anti-Iraq war stuff is like, this is the wrong war, right? And now what we're seeing is that the Democratic Party, with the support of the high echelons of the military-industrial complex, are basically presenting themselves as the responsible stewards of American imperialism, whereas the Republican Party is chaotic and all over the place.
Well, I think.
Go ahead, Pascal.
I want to make this is very important. Is that coming out of the 1960s, the Democratic Party had the perception of the party of chaos, of nonsense, of this total irrationality, of the hippies, the protesters, the kids. It was a party that was being cobbled together with the New Deal Civil Rights Coalition, but with all of these tethers.
Incoherent around. Party.
Yeah, okay. That changed with the rise of Clintonianism. The Clinton pivot in 92 was about auditioning to the rulers of the means of production to tell them we are ready to take over the reins of power in this country. Because no one believed in the post civil rights era that the Democratic Party was a party of the ruling class. And what has happened is that the Democratic Party has effectively become the party of the ruling class in American society. And in their shoring up that role, it has left the Republicans to maintain nothing but a state of reactionary obscurity.
So I agree with. I have a slightly different take than Pascal, but I think we roughly align. And going back to a question that you had earlier, Pascal, about whether Ron DeSantis like really means it or whether he's being entirely tactical. There's a bigger question, which is to what extent can any American political figure at this point mean it? There's a mission for a country like China that different cadres may take more seriously. Some may be passionately committed to it. Some may be cynical. But there is a certain clarity as to what it means to be a Chinese communist leader. In the United States, the old traditional understanding of what the responsibility was of national leadership, right? You protect the Constitution, keep enemies out, foster diversity, etc., progress. It was vague, but people believed in that, right? People accepted that there were rules that limited what you could do, which served this higher good that you were all invested in. And at this point, the breakdown of that old order, which I'm not suggesting that it was a constitutional order or a legal order, it could have just been a gentleman's agreement among the leadership class, but that's done. It's out. So in some ways, fighting to survive is the most that you can do. Like maybe some people on the very committed to certain issues like trans rights or anti-abortion may make those their individual mission, but there's no ideologically coherent side that you can be on. And that's why all of the juristical constraints are just falling away. All of the things which were supposed to be settled to allow for some kind of peaceful and bordered, limited confrontation over power, one by one, those have given way to the reality that, like, no, it's gloves off. The next election, you're an idiot if you aren't cheating, because the other, clearly that's something that happens now. And I think that the Republicans are ahead of the curve on this. And part of it is because the Democrats, their tactic was to co-opt the military-industrial complex, co-opt universities. Basically, it's an elite-driven strategy, which to a certain extent has been successful. But all of those institutions also include pissed-off outsiders. And the Republican strategies, well, we don't need to technically win if our pissed-off outsider group is just going to storm everything and tear everything up. We just need to make sure that we have the most loyal and the most numerous stormtroopers.
Well, on that cheery note,
Well, you should play that. You should play that little clip then to describe the situation we're in. You know which little clip that I have ready?
Oh, this one. Hold on. You must be putting me at the same time. Okay.
Nope.
Danger.
Danger. I didn't hit. That's where we are.
I want to see your hands up, Bajlan. I know it's you.
comes with danger,
Danger.
beloved missiles.
There we
Kid
go.
knows-
Danger.
Kid knows trouble when he sees it.
He knows the situation we're in. It's danger.
Danger, beloved missiles.
That poor little boy had a southern drawl, and he came back talking like a dandy fop.
He goes, caution, daddy, caution. He's really into danger signs. Caution, explosions.
Oh my goodness. Well, on that cheery note, we will be heading into the patron-only champagne room where Cuba has a deep state Death Star story for us about bugs taking over Yavin.
Bugger me.
That's some deep Star Wars talk right there, if you know that. If you know Star Wars, it all starts with the Battle of Yavin. That's the DC timeline for Star Wars stuff. But Cuba definitely has a story for us. MT, since she now has everything working, is going to finish what she had to say about venture capitalists in labor. I'm going to drop a little nugget maybe not everybody knew about how child support affects people in services, meaning women that are single mothers that try to apply for welfare, especially in certain states in the Southwest, post Bill Clinton's welfare reform, and who's really profiting. If you haven't done it, hit like, please hit subscribe. It helps us out in the algorithm so more people can watch this show. If you haven't checked out the website, this is revolutionpodcast.com. We have some new merchandise up. You can see Pascal's smiling face on a mug. MT, do you have any parting words for us? I guess I lied about her coming back in the champagne room because once again,
You'd be surprised how many people love the crack.
Man,
Don't crack shame her. Come on, man.
you can get away with that? Jesus Christ.
damn, see, Kuba's trying to instigate like me. You gonna get away with that? Talk about
You gotta let him talk like Kuba's trying to do the kayfabe.
Damn.
You gonna let him talk like that about you?
Damn, said your whole family. You just keeping up with the family tradition.
You'd be surprised how many people love the crack.
Wow,
Jason,
there was no need to do that.
you just escalated it.
Yeah, exactly.
You escalated
She didn't
it.
even have a chance to respond. This is how you get a Korean War.
Exactly.
Thank you, everybody, for checking out, hanging out with us. We'll see you guys in the champagne room, and we are out.